welcome back to For the Love of Star Wars. Every episode we bring on a guest from the Star Wars galaxy of fans, collectors and creators to talk about a piece of Star Wars media that they love. Sometimes it's a classic, sometimes it's a deep cut, and sometimes it is something quite special. Today we have a man who knows his Star Wars and his pop culture. He is the host of Super Awesome Geek Show. He is the one and only Super John.
Hey!
Hi, John.
Hello, John. How's it going?
Good. How you guys doing?
Really good. Thanks, mate.
Very excited to chat to you. We've covered so many different things in this series, John, like Star Wars media, from live action to animation and documentaries. Let's hear what your choice is, because it's a bit different, isn't it?
Yeah. So I was trying to look for something that is near and dear to my heart, but also that maybe doesn't get covered all the time. A little bit of background here. Like I have pretty much been collecting Star Wars my entire life. My mom took me to the films when I was like 4 years old, and she said it was the first movie I sat through without fidgeting, getting up, running out of the theater, or making nonsense and noises. And she said I sat down in the theater, my jaw dropped when that ship went overhead, and I didn't move until it was done. And she's like, we ended up going 23 times because I kept asking to go again and again and again. And my love of Star Wars just started right there. I immediately had to have all the figures and was just taking in everything that I could take in. And that year, I think it was 1978 at Christmas, they came out with the holiday special. And as a kid, I was looking forward to this thing like no end. I was like, oh my gosh, Star Wars on TV. This is going to be awesome. When I made arrangements with my mom to be able to stay up late, we were going to watch this thing. And it was just awful. People singing, people dancing. It was just stupid. And then all of a sudden, this cartoon comes on in the middle of it. And I'm like, wait a minute. And I loved it. I absolutely loved the cartoon. Got introduced to this cool new character named Boba Fett, and I was like, wow, what is going on here? We got this awesome animated thing. I wanted it to be like a full show. I was like so hooked on this thing that I wanted that animated style just to come as a TV show and be like its own thing. And I remember just loving that cartoon so much that I wanted just to see that over and over again. And that's what we're here to talk about today is the cartoon. And right now you can watch it on Disney Plus. They pulled it out. My dream finally came true. They pulled it out and made it just its own standalone little cartoon in their vintage section on Disney Plus Star Wars. So now we can watch it anytime we want.
Anytime, yes. It's titled The Faithful Wookiee. It first aired in November 17th, 1978 on CBS. As you said, it was part of the holiday special. It was animated by Nelvana, the Canadian studio that would go on to make Droids and Ewoks. Obviously, it featured all the voices of the original cast. That was great to hear. And Boba Fett was voiced by a guy, Don Franks. I'm not too familiar with him, but Rotten Tomatoes audience score, it was for the holiday special as a whole. They gave it 23%.
Of course,
As you said, most fans will agree that The Faithful Wookiee is one of the things worth watching as part of that. To get a specific score on that, I had to go back to IMDb, and it got 6 out of 10, which is respectable, I suppose.
Yeah.
So tell us, John, what is it that you love about The Faithful Wookiee?
Well, I mean, for starters, it was my first viewing of the character of Boba Fett, and I thought that he was great. It was kind of ambiguous in the beginning. I think I've always liked characters where you don't know if they're good or bad. And in this cartoon, Boba Fett shows up claiming to be a friend to Luke Skywalker and C-3PO, right? And R2, or is it's Luke and R2 that are on the planet, right? I can't remember exactly.
And 3PO.
And 3PO, they're all together, right? And
they
that's right. And then they're looking for a cure for Han Solo and Chewie, who have the sleeping sickness, and they've got to be hung upside down, right? Aren't they hanging upside down to keep them from passing away or whatever? And but Boba Fett shows up and he slaps this creature he's riding on. And he's like, "Hello, friend," and he's and so it's kind of like you first get this idea that's like, well, is Boba Fett a good guy or a bad guy? Maybe he's there to help. And by the end, you realize he's working for the Empire, just as always. And it's kind of cool,
Yeah. Yeah, Martin, you said something similar earlier, didn't you? We were talking about it a little bit, and you said, "Oh, I can't believe they've made him a good guy." And then
Yeah.
it obviously, because it was the first time that both of us have actually watched it, right?
Yeah, I mean, yes, I
He's
watched it
so
about
old,
2
but
hours. Yeah, 2 hours ago, and I think what prevented me from watching it was the fact that, as John said earlier, it was intermingled into the holiday special, and while I'd seen parts of the holiday special, I've never sat and watched all the way through. So I guess this just didn't really appeal to me because it was associated to that. But when we asked
mm,
John to come on and he picked this, of course, I was obviously going to watch it, and I was pleasantly surprised. To be quite honest with you, it's for its time, it's quite a good cartoon, and
mm,
to be honest with you, I'm interesting that you said that it was made by the creators of Droids, because the first thing that popped in my head was that's literally the same animation for C-3PO
yeah,
that they used
yes,
in the Droids cartoons. Yeah, I mean, yes, 9 minutes long. So
yeah,
all I would say is anyone who's not seen this before, you got to check it out. And it's, as John said, it's on Disney Plus.
yeah.
yeah. It's definitely worth a watch, and I mean, John, you'd have liked it to be longer, right?
Well,
They
I
could have
don't.
done so much more with the story, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't mind that it's only 9 minutes long, but I think my whole life I've just thought it. Even I mean, as a kid especially, I was like, I want to see more in this style. It's like you're saying, we got it in Droids later on, where they brought 3PO and R2 in, and they literally pretty much drew them the same when they did the Droids cartoon.
Mm,
But the characters of like Luke, Han, were very much stylized in this holiday special cartoon as compared to like the humans in the Droids cartoon that had a more traditional cartoon human look. Where these
mm,
guys look, I mean, Han looks like Mick Jagger in a sense. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy. Like they really stylized
yeah.
Luke and Han in this small little 9 minute cartoon, and that can be jarring for some people as well because they're more used to, I think, the droids and Ewoks sort of style, where this one seems a bit more stylized in the characters of Luke and Han, especially.
Going on to Boba Fett, like obviously this was the first time you ever saw him. How do you sort of feel his character is looking back at this episode after knowing what you know about him now?
Um,
Like it's because I'm thinking, this isn't the Boba Fett that we know, Martin and I, because we didn't see this when it first came out.
that's
So it's
interesting.
kind of a strange sort of concept to us, I think.
That's interesting because to me, he's still the bounty hunter, Boba Fett. Like,
Yeah.
because so so I like seeing Boba Fett in this cartoon and then watching him in Empire Strikes Back and then his end in Return of the Jedi. Like I had this, that was my vision of Boba Fett. And to me, that all fits together. This cartoon and the Boba Fett in Empire Strikes Back are one and the same. You know what I mean? He's just a bounty
Mm,
hunter and he happens to
Yeah.
be taking more jobs for the Empire than he is going, so he's most of the time against the rebels. So this was kind of like in line with that, where he just pretended to be a good guy in the beginning, but you see Darth Vader in his viewfinder on the screen on his TV on his communication device. Like, no, well, he's just playing a part because he's got this bounty that he got, this job that he got from Darth Vader to complete
Yeah.
this task. You know what I mean? So he's got to, because Luke and them don't know who he is at this point. You know what I mean?
mm,
So
Yeah.
um, whether Han does or not, you don't know. But what I think with the character Boba Fett is what we got both in the sequel films with finding out that he's the son of Jango Fett, and there was at the time even question as to whether or not Jango Fett was a real Mandalorian. You know what I mean? And then going into what has happened today, I actually think part of me feels bad for the character of Boba Fett because I think the mystery around that character has been lost.
Mm,
Like the big appeal to Boba Fett when I was young was the mystery surrounding him. Like we didn't know
definitely,
what he
yeah.
looked like under the mask. We didn't know who he was. We didn't know who the Mandalorians were. Like the whole Mandalorian race was a mystery to us as a kid, you know. And I think now that a lot of stuff has been fleshed out about Boba Fett and the Mandalorians, it's lost something through the years that to me rather than gained stuff. You know what I mean?
So I was going to say, I don't know if the cartoon's considered canon. I would suspect it's probably not.
Yeah,
But everything in the cartoon pretty much could line up with everything we've seen, especially in the original trilogy. So I
yeah,
actually think there's reason to think that this could be kept as canon, because obviously, you know, they all know who Boba Fett is by the time of The Empire Strikes Back. You know, he's no longer trying to hide the fact that he's a good guy because they know
yeah,
that he's a
Yeah.
bad guy. So it does kind of line up the story of the cartoon to the next movie. So yeah, I mean, for that alone, I think that's quite unusual, especially back then, that they would try and line things up that well. So yeah, I was impressed by that aspect of it.
yeah. Whether it was on purpose or accident, it worked out. You
Mm.
know?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
So, what did you make of the original design then of Boba Fett with his long rifle with the like tuning fork tip to it? I suppose
Yeah, yeah.
it's a
Well,
bit
I
different.
always thought it was interesting back then, and I I never quite understood if it was like a electric prod for the thing, but then it actually kind of worked like a rifle later on. You know
Mm.
what I mean? So it's kind of like, was it originally drawn and intended just to be like an electric prod? That's why it had two, and the electricity
Yeah,
could fly between it, so it would zap the creature. But then they later on were like, well, we need a rifle, so we might as well just make it shoot. You know, I don't know, but you know, it's, and then of course you see now that design led to the rifle that the Mandalorian uses. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's kind of like, you know, I think people who had seen this animated show, you know, like probably John Favreau and Dave Filoni, they were like, that image of that rifle kind of stuck in their head. So they had to use it when it came time to do the Mandalorian. You know what I mean? So, you know, I
mm.
think I think something about that rifle just stuck in all of our heads.
So the fact that Boba's kind of a double agent type thing did that work for you? Like I'm trying to sort of see it from a perspective of you when you first watched it. You wouldn't have known any different about Boba Fett, but
Yeah.
you go back and watch it now. Does that sort of work for you? Because obviously
I
Martin
I
was saying he wasn't sure on it at first until
yeah,
it sort of
I felt like it was
did happen.
fine, and I always have. I mean, because you know, if you've never met, I mean, it's kind of like a thing they do. It's almost like a trope, you call it, like a thing that they do in
Mm,
movies a lot, where if the good guys never met the person that's after them, it is kind of a good strategy and a good tactic to sort of pretend you're on their side and get in close with them and then spring the trap when they least expect it. You know what I mean? Rather than
Yeah.
having to chase them the whole time. Whereas if you show up being a bad guy, immediately trying to get them and they get away, now you've got to chase them the whole time. So it's kind
mm,
of like, it's a little bit easier if you can get on their good side, you know. And I would think that bounty hunters would use that tactic if they don't,
Mm.
if the prey doesn't know that they're being hunted. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
So
yeah.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't see why Boba Fett wouldn't use that tactic, you know?
And I can see, I mean, obviously, I didn't see this when I was younger, but I can definitely see the appeal from a young child who's just seen Star Wars, and then this comes out, and it's not only got all of the voice actors from the who played the original characters, but you've even got all of the sound effects for the ships and the blasters. I mean, everything about this screams Star Wars to me. And yes, you could say that the animation isn't
it's quirky,
fantastic, but that's fine.
Yeah,
it's quirky and of its time.
Of its time,
Yeah.
and exactly. And I think the story, the 9-minute story that you get, is no different to the sort of story you would have got at any cartoon in the 70s or 80s, to be quite frank. So yeah, I actually really enjoyed it, and I'm really glad you chose it, because I probably would never have watched it otherwise. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah, had they not have intertwined it into the holiday special, do you think they would have made more of these?
I would like to think that would be a good idea, and I would hope they would have. But yeah, it could be that the I've always wondered if this was sort of a test. I get what you're, because like, it's too bad that it was not its own little thing. But because I would wonder if because a lot of audiences said they just hated the holiday special. So I almost wonder if George took it as the whole thing was just terrible. Let's not do this ever again. And even he says, I don't really even want the holiday special to come out. And it wasn't till like those of us that grew up and became adults, I think, in our reaction saying, well, at least give us the cartoon, is what made them put the cartoon out on Disney Plus. But if our voices as kids would have been louder when we were children, or like say the internet existed when we were children, maybe we could have said something like, listen, the holiday special sucked, but that cartoon was great. So give us more of that, and then they might have actually done a series. Because you got to think, like, was that a test for a series? Like, did he originally intend putting that cartoon in as a test to see, like, well, let's see if audiences react to this cartoon, and then we can do a series on TV that's animated. You know what I mean? And
definitely.
Since the whole holiday special was poo-pooed, they kind of went, well, we're not going to move forward with this cartoon idea either. Then, you know what I mean? So, yeah, it's hard to imagine. It'd be something that'd be interesting to ask George about, like nowadays. Like, what was the original plan and idea behind that cartoon? Was it a test, or was it just something you thought was just neat and threw it in? It was always considered to be a one-off.
Yeah.
It's certainly the sort of thing George would do, because he'd do little tests all the time, wouldn't he, for future projects? So I think you're onto something there, John. I really do. I think that's definitely something he probably would have thought through. And the very fact that Ewoks and droids came out, what, 5 6 years later?
Yeah, wasn't that 85 when the droids cartoon came out?
Yeah. So yeah, interesting. And in fact, I would argue nobody's chosen a droids or Ewoks episode yet on this series. But having remember watching those when I was a kid, I'd say that this short was a lot better than most of the episodes in those cartoons, hands down.
I considered doing a droids arc, because I like the arc with Kylo Ren and the rune stones. I like that arc because it brings in a lot of the Empire, and those droids episodes are much better than the rest of the whole series, in my opinion. But basically because it brings the Empire in, and you see stormtroopers, and I think IG-88's in that arc, and along with Boba Fett and some other, characters that are from Star Wars. So it feels more like a Star Wars cartoon than some of the other, where it was just the droids and Mon Jopa or someone, you know what I mean? Where
save it for season 3.
Yeah. But I do have to say though that this cartoon, like when we started getting the figures and they had that stamp on the package saying "Get your free Boba Fett," like, as someone who watched the cartoon, I was like, "Oh my God, they're making a figure of that character we saw in the cartoon! I gotta have this, Mom." You know what I mean? Like, so it was kind of, because that was coming out. Those stamps were going on the figures before Empire Strikes Back was in theaters. So to a lot of people who didn't see the cartoon, they were like, "Who's this figure and what's going on?" But me as a kid who had seen it, my brother and I were just like, "We got to have this figure, Bob." So we went out and bought all these other we had to buy all these other figures just to get enough to send in for the Boba Fett. We were like, I
Yeah.
was like, oh God, that
Yeah.
started the mail away stuff. Like we got every figure after that. That was a mail away. Mom
Mm.
enjoyed collecting those things and mailing away for us. So
Yeah.
So do you remember that day that he arrived in the
no,
post?
I actually don't remember any of them
Oh,
arriving because I think what would
uh,
happen is Mom would get them in the post, open the boxes up, and then I think she would just give us the figure.
oh,
So I
right.
I, I vaguely just remember like one day she's like, "Well, I got your figure. Here you go," and she's giving it to me and Mark. And I think the other thing too is I think she would hang on to them till she got them for both of us, so
Yeah.
that we would get them at the same time. Because if we had something, if he had something that I wanted, I'd be stealing it. We'd get into arguments,
Mm.
and like vice versa. So
Yeah.
a lot of
True.
times she made sure there was enough for both of us so that we would get it at the same time. So
Amazing.
So even off the back of this animated show, Boba Fett was like an icon to you already.
yeah, yeah. So much so that I have. Oh, I should have pulled this out. Where the heck is it? I have an animated cell from this cartoon with Boba Fett
Oh
in it.
wow,
Wow,
Yeah,
that's cool.
that's incredible.
yeah,
Yeah.
Oh wait, if you find it, take a picture and I'll
yeah.
pop it up in the edit.
I'll
Yeah.
yeah. Between today and tomorrow, I'll go look in the pile of framed pictures because I had it.
Wow.
I had it framed and put on the wall, and we don't have enough wall space here, so they're all stacked somewhere. But
Excellent. Well, our last question then is always, as always, what made this feel like Star Wars to you, John?
I think it's just the characters and, like you said earlier, the fact that they got the guys to come in and do their own voices, that really adds to it. And it's something that I think more and more about today, where it very well could be done in an animated series. We could get a lot more with Luke, Han, Chewie, and Leia if they would just do some animated series things. And you can do
Mm.
animation for adults, and then Mark Hamill would be more than happy to do the voice of Luke Skywalker, no matter what age he is. You know what I mean? Like, and
Definitely.
and you might be able to finagle Harrison Ford into doing some voiceover work. You never know. You know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but it's because people always say they want to see more with Luke and Han and Leia, but unfortunately we lost Carrie Fisher, and you're not going to get a Luke and Han that's that old if you do it live action, but you can do it in animation. And this is kind of one of those cartoons where it felt like Star Wars because of those voices, and it also has a lot of elements. You saw different aliens in it. You saw droids. You had the stormtroopers, even though they were crazy stylized too. But it's like you got all that stuff. Those elements of Star Wars were there. And like Martin said, the sounds, the lights, the blaster effects, the engine sounds. I mean, the Falcon, the sound of the Falcon, like everything was there, so it just
Yeah.
felt Star Wars right from the get go.
Yeah. Absolutely. It was certainly an interesting one, and one that I'm actually quite glad to have been able to see for the very first time. I think Martin feels the same.
Yeah,
So
definitely, definitely.
we can only thank you for that. And we'll thank you for joining us. It's been great checking out this, weird little slice of Star Wars animation with you.
Yeah.
For everyone watching, if you've seen The Faithful Wookiee, let us know your thoughts on it. And don't forget to go and check out Super John's channel, Super Awesome Geek Show. We'll leave the link in the description for you there. Give him a sub. We'll be back with another guest very soon. Other than that, I'm off to ride a giant dinosaur through the streets. We'll see you later.
Bye, everybody. Stay awesome out there.